Hello and welcome to this video, Gradual Release of Responsibility in Student Teaching, Ideas for Mentor Teachers. The purpose for this video is to provide a brief discussion of gradual release of responsibility and how it might be applied to a student teaching experience from a mentor teacher's perspective. I will provide a model for collaborative planning and teaching as a goal for the semester, reconnect to a potential timeline for the student teaching experience, and provide some thoughts about differentiation and negotiation as they apply to mentoring a student teacher. Most of us will be familiar with the idea of gradual release of responsibility as it applies to teaching students in our classrooms. As seen in this figure, which focuses on using gradual release of responsibility to teach reading comprehension strategies, the goal of GRR is to move from 100% teacher responsibility to 100% student responsibility. Although the nature of this process has been adapted since it was first introduced in the 1980s, the general flow here is to first provide an explicit description of the strategy, then for the teacher to provide modeling of the strategy, then to collaboratively use the strategy, next to provide guided practice, and ultimately to see independent use of the strategy by the student. What we have done here is to reimagine gradual release of responsibility as it might look in a mentor-teacher, student-teacher relationship that is centered on a collaborative planning and instruction model. We will be providing a much deeper dive into collaborative planning and teaching in a later unit in this course. For right now, though, we want to provide an overview of a progression that we are recommending to support student teachers to gradually develop independent proficiency in planning and instruction. This progression moves from modeled planning and teaching to guided planning and teaching to shared planning and teaching, and then to monitored planning and teaching. In modeled planning and teaching, the mentor teacher is deliberate and purposeful about articulating a rationale for decision-making in planning and for making teaching practices visible. The cognitive work of planning and the actual instruction is done by the mentor teacher. The student teacher is in the role of observer for both planning and teaching, with support from the mentor so that the learning achieved by observation can be used in reflection and eventually in practice. This portion of the student teaching experience will most likely be short in duration and may occur at the beginning of the student teaching experience or very possibly in a prior practicum experience. In guided planning and instruction, the mentor teacher continues to be deliberate and purposeful about articulating a rationale for decision-making in planning and in instructional moves. While the mentor teacher continues to carry the cognitive work of planning and the load of teaching, the student teacher is prompted here to contribute ideas and suggestions for key components of lessons, in teaching predetermined components of instruction, and in documenting lesson plans and gathering resources. While the student teacher may not yet be independently engaged in active teaching, he or she should be purposefully observing the mentor teacher and beginning to work with small groups and individual students. In shared planning and instruction, the mentor teacher and student teacher work together to make decisions around content, management, instructional strategies, logistics, and student needs, challenging each other on rationale as needed. The mentor and student teacher share the teaching load, understanding that the balance of teaching may shift, with first one and then the other taking a primary role. In this portion of our model, the cognitive load and the active work of teaching are equally shared by the mentor and student teacher. During the student teaching experience, this portion of the model should be the largest chunk of the time. In monitored planning and instruction, the student teacher carries the full cognitive and active work of both planning and teaching. The mentor teacher reviews and provides feedback of plans before enactment of the lesson. The mentor teacher also supports the student teacher through intervention at points of struggle and facilitating reflection on the teaching for the purpose of improvement. The student teacher is the lead responder to both anticipated and unanticipated student and classroom needs. You will notice that the final piece of this image, independent planning and instruction, is in a different style of font. This is a purposeful move to indicate that, in almost all cases, this level of independence begins when the student teacher gains a position as a professional educator and is then on his or her own. Even in this position, of course, the novice teacher will need support and mentoring to move successfully through our complex and difficult profession. Of course, there is no one correct way to progress through this model. Much will depend on the strengths of the student teacher and the willingness of the mentor teacher to hand over responsibilities. There are many issues to consider when moving through the model. How long has the student teacher been present in your classroom? How comfortable are your students with the student teacher? Are there specific content areas for elementary teachers or class periods for secondary teachers that your student teacher might take on and then increase the load for him or her over time? Can the student teacher practice some particular work with small groups and then work with the whole class? Individual situations, depending on the context and the people involved, will require some differentiated application, some negotiation, and of course, continued review. A potential timeline for the student teaching experience, which provides a bit more detail, can be found in Unit 1 of this course. Again, please realize that every situation is unique and that there is no single correct way to apprentice a novice teacher into the profession. University of Wyoming College of Education personnel, including faculty supervisors, non-faculty supervisors, and facilitators, as well as administrators if needed, are here to support your work with the student teacher who has been placed in your classroom. We appreciate your attention to providing a collaborative learning opportunity in your classroom for a student teacher.